We've all seen them. Dark rooms, glowing screens, maps covered in movement, voices low, urgent, decisions made in seconds. Hollywood calls them war rooms. But in a modern democracy, what are they really? A real war room isn't about theatrics. It isn't about generals staring at maps. It's something far more powerful and far more dangerous if misunderstood. A true war room is a compression engine for reality. It exists to collapse time. In normal government operations, information moves slow, layer by layer, department by department. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and by the time action happens, the moment has already passed. A war room eliminates that delay. It pulls data, decision makers, and authority into a single space, physical or digital, where insight becomes action in real time. No lag, no bureaucracy, no diffusion of responsibility, just signal and response. In a crisis, economic, political, environmental, that speed isn't a luxury. It's the difference between control and chaos. So the real question isn't what is a war room? It's this: who controls Canada's war or situation rooms, and what's going on in them? All right, and to talk more about this, a guy who's always informed on things, militarily speaking. Not only does he have a historical background in that with his family involvement, but also well-read on the topic. Jim Lang, radio broadcast and television broadcast icon, and now podcast leader in Canada. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure, Mike. Pleasure. I'm very excited about this topic because it extends to sports and entertainment and business beyond what the original thought process of it was. And it really started in the dark days of World War II for England in 1940 during the Battle of Britain. And it was Winston Churchill and what he called his war cabinet coming up, and they created the War Room War Cabinet with top generals and squadron leaders and war planners. What are they going to do? America wasn't in the war. They were a few against many, and they didn't know how they were going to survive the summer and fall of 1940 with, at that time, Adolf Hitler in Germany had conquered France, and they could see the White Cliffs of Dover, and they thought if they don't win, the Germans are going to cross English Channel and take them over. And it was all about planning every day. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? What's our next step? And being meticulous about it and being a leader and checking your ego at the door. And if there was a junior officer or someone who had an idea that was good, listening to it and trying to incorporate it in the big plan.
So essentially, this was born as many things are that are used for a long time, born out of necessity.
Yes.
Of organizing experts in each field. What assets do we have? Where are the assets that we have? Who is going to handle the coordination of these assets? Logistics. I guess at that time, munitions, creation of munitions, air traffic, air force creation.
And Mike, it was having someone with enough intestinal fortitude and courage to put their hand up and say, I disagree with Winston Churchill or a 3-star general or whomever it is, and say, I don't think that will work, and this is why. And that's the beauty of a war room concept in business and sports and in the military and in the world is, hey, look, I think this is going to not work out, and these are the reasons why. Why don't we try this?
Winston Churchill, one of the things that struck me is he had his own way of organizing how he did things.
Yes, very much.
He spent a lot of time in bed.
Yes,
did you know that?
Dictating to his secretary.
Yeah, and he would have a cabinet beside the bed with all of the mail that he had to do, and every drawer had but he had his own way of doing it,
very
and I think
so.
that had a lot to do with the drink. But having said that, what was born of that is what we, as in a modern society, view as a war room, a situation room.
Correct.
One room where everybody is working together on an equal playing field to find solutions.
And from there, the evolution was post-World War II. The Allies had won, and they had a war room. The creation of the United Nations and NATO, and how are they going to split up the world now that they had conquered Germany and Japan, and how are they going to rebuild, and how are they going to feed people? All of a sudden, you've got millions of displaced people with no food and nowhere to live.
So interesting. Already in a peacetime, we're still calling it a war room.
Yeah,
a war room because we're at war with a situation.
Hunger and the serious health issues and hygiene. And how, if we don't have proper sanitation and clean water and a roof on their head and with something to feed them, there's going to be mass starvation, mass death. And they just had, so they had the idea, look, what do we need to do and how can we do it? And having like a big wall, because this was the analog world where basically you had a big chalkboard or whiteboard and someone with good penmanship writing out ideas and planning it out and having a flow chart. And all of a sudden, people who were an officer in the Navy or the military or the Army got into the business world and said, well, you know what? If I took that same philosophy and applied it to business and law and manufacturing, could it work? And it did work.
Yeah. If
you think about the big three automakers in the 50s and 60s and how Germany and Japan rebuilt their countries, they took some of those same methodology, same ideas, same concepts, and applied it to building homes and building highways and building vehicles and manufacturing and running a country.
We also view, I guess, a classic war room is the what's known as the Situation Room at the White House.
Yes.
I would imagine every country has their version of the Situation Room. The one, I believe Putin's has sharks with lasers swimming around.
Right, yeah. And a moat.
And he has got a moat around it, yeah. But having said that, that's sort of really what it is real-time global crisis management.
Yeah.
With all of the specialists in the room advising that moment.
They have to, and it's a true story. So in the 1960s, Stanley Kubrick made the incredible movie Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
And in it, there's a war room. And there's a famous line, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
That's right. I recall that.
So Ronald Reagan is elected president of the United States. And the White House staff and the Secret Service are taking him through the White House for the first time. And he's looking around. And he said, gentlemen, where's the war room?
That's funny.
And he said, the quote word for word. And they said, Mr. President, we don't have a war room. That's only in the movie. We have a situation room. So he, for years, a lot, because this is pre-internet.
Well, he was also an actor. He probably acted where he was in the war room several times. Yeah.
So, but in a situation room, as they have in the White House and in the Pentagon, you would have the heads of the different military branches, the head of intelligence services, the head of everyone else that they would need. And this is why a world leader looks so aged after they've been in office, because unfortunately, Mike, you're being woken up at 2:30 in the morning from a dead sleep and dragged down to the situation room. And so, look, we got a problem in the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz, and we need, because you're the commander in chief, and we need an answer now.
Right.
So they're sitting there staring into the war room like, what? The situation room in the White House, and they're being fed all this information, and they have to come up with a decision right there. So the quality of the information and how it's given to the president at the time, how it's explained to them in the simplest terms possible so they can make an informed decision is crucial.
Because it makes the change. It can change the world in a heartbeat.
Look at what the price of oil is doing. And that's a perfect example. I mean,
if I ever become the president of any country and I have to go into a war room or a situation room in the middle of the night, make sure there's an espresso sitting there and give me 10 minutes.
So the great thing about it is some of the best minds in the National Football League at one time served in World War II. Among them was Tom Landry, the longtime coach of the Dallas Cowboys, who was a B-17 pilot in World War II. So he had been in war room situations as a pilot planning out missions. And they decided, the Dallas Cowboys in the 60s, to take that same concept with Textram and everybody involved with the organization to plan out the draft, plan out the season, plan out the organization, and created this massively successful team in the 60s and 70s, winning Super Bowls, filling stadiums, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. So, and then extended the whole war room concept into the boardrooms of Bay Street and Wall Street and Fleet Street in England, into sports. Hey, how do I draft Mike Wixson? Is he the good guy? And having a flow chart of information, and even to entertainment. To this day, Martin Scorsese has a quote unquote war room with all his principal photographers and cinematographers.
So he knows where everybody is
every day.
Yeah.
Hey, Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be here this day, and we're going to do it that day, and they map it out to the second.
Unit 2 is over here shooting this. Yeah, no, he's it's interesting how and you bring it up in sports that becomes the org chart, because in a situation room for war or national security or national planning, those war rooms are full of people representing another large, generally speaking, a large thinking group of people that are being referred to constantly. Some of those may be in the room, but behind that expert at the table, generally speaking, at that level, there's an org chart that falls out of that
Bingo.
from the highest level to the bottom level. And then what really a war room, as we pointed out in the beginning, a war room gives you the opportunity to shrink time, to condense time, how much time information takes to get to the top of that decision-making chart.
And I could be a scout and you're the general manager, and I'm saying, I know you don't know him, but I saw this kid, Christoph, and he goes to Queen's University at Kingston. I'm telling you, we have to draft him. And there might be a lively debate. Ultimately, you as a general manager would have the final say, but I'm giving my 2 cents worth. And that's the kind of thing. It's like, hey, we have to create this product. At one time, someone in a boardroom, in a war room at Coca-Cola, thought we're going to create new Coke.
Right.
To combat Pepsi, because Pepsi was growing at such an exponential rate in the early mid-'80s and becoming so huge. Well, it was a horrible mistake. Look how much money in market share Coca-Cola lost from the debacle that was New Coke.
But that was because they sat down and said, okay.
They thought it was a great idea.
We have 1 quarter in which to regain market share for our shareholders.
Yeah.
What is our plan going to be to deliver to them? And it was, if you think about it, that was a massive, massive undertaking. Yeah. They said, we're going to change our brand and put everything behind it.
A brand that was 100 years old.
And we're going for it. And, you know, it's a credit to that war room tactic. When you have every expert in the room on the same page, it's hard to deny that you have a decision that seems worthwhile making. And at that moment, you even know what your answer is. Otherwise, it would have come up in the war room previous to that.
Or you could say, why did no one speak up?
Right.
And that you hold accountable to junior members of your war room. Like you didn't.
You were there. You had the opportunity.
Why didn't you say something? That's what we're here for. And I really think this concept right now in Canadian history, Mike, is something that can be applied to the economy of this country, to manufacturing, to infrastructure, to business, to combat what's going on with the Middle East, combat Donald Trump, combat tariffs. We have the brain power in this country. We've seen that time and time again. If we get a good representation of different groups of people and actually listen to them and consider their ideas, we could come up with some great plans.
You know, even more to the point, we have a lot of unqualified ministers.
Yes.
I point to the Minister of Immigration, several other ministers out there that seem completely unqualified to head their position. If you knew that they were just one voice in a war room or a situation room or an action room, whatever you want to call it in this modern era, you'd feel more confident. I think we would get further and make better decisions. And that then reports that, once again, part of that org chart makes its way faster to the top before long-term decisions have long-term effects.
Okay, Mike, you think about right now, the federal minister of immigration, Diab, out of Halifax West, and how she's under fire. Even some members of her own Liberal Party are kind of not happy with her portfolio. Yeah. Does she inspire confidence when she's in their situation room, admitting that there's thousands of undocumented foreigners in this country? They don't even know if they're part of the IRGC. Well, they just got rid of one, but they don't even know how many there are in the country.
So if you thought to yourself, okay, we have a situation room on immigration because we have a problem that is terrible for new Canadians, immigrants to Canada,
and safety, crime.
We have it's problematic for Canadians overall, financially, safety wise, the healthcare. So now we know it is a national situation. So now, do we need a situation room where we get reports out of the situation room daily?
See, Mark Carney was the head of the Bank of England, the Bank of Canada, head of some of the biggest hedge funds in the world. I have to believe that he has been privy and part of these really high-level business war rooms, exchanging ideas. Do we go short the stock? Do we go long? Do we invest in oil?
Right.
Do we look at green energy? So I would like to hear stories that Carney, because right now it appears that he's got a real small key group of people that he listens to and really doesn't want to hear from anybody else. But, you know, here we are in this.
He has his executive cadre, and that's about it.
That's about it. But on this Wednesday that we're taping, there's the disturbing story that Honda Canada is not going to be going through their electric vehicle plant in Ontario, and that's a loss of thousands of jobs potentially for the province and for the country.
Okay, there's another situation room. We've got to get back to work.
So how do we fix this?
We need a productivity. We need a real productivity and economic situation room right now. Okay, so here's a good example. We found out this morning Honda's not coming in. Several days ago, what is our plan of action? We need experts from the field of economics. We need people from manufacturing.
The auto sector.
Tell us is there a replacement for the auto sector we need to be thinking about at a higher level? All of these things need to come in, and you would hope that we have Ottawa set up in a fashion that there are these situation rooms looking out for us. And if there aren't, historically we found that they do create enormous potential for progress and success.
And great ideas. And there is one potential right now. The Hanwha people of South Korea, Mike, have said, if you buy the submarines, we're building armored vehicles and mobile artillery units in Canada. So if you've lost all these jobs from Honda, there's a chance to replace them with high-tech, sophisticated jobs in military equipment that they said they will build there. And that to me is something you would discuss in a political, economic war room.
Yeah. So tell me, what's the outcome either way on this?
And how many jobs? And what's the benefit?
Extrapolate this notion of what would happen on, for better or for worse. Give me the pros and cons.
Do we have to build homes and roads? Do we have to do stuff?
That's a great. So you wonder. So here's the thing, and we'll get to a couple of other ones.
Yeah.
The truth is, so many people are working from home now.
Yeah.
And what I would love to see, and I think you would love to see, and many Canadians, is we look into our government offices and see a war room of experts, then leaving that room to execute decisions.
Yeah.
It seems like we could get a group email together or have a Zoom call later on today to get to this, but, Susie can't log in and John doesn't have the ability to send a document.
And then Jim's thing is just a cat.
Yeah. Well,
you take the cat off the screen.
Jim, you're a cat again. So, I think that we need to maybe really consider how we get people back into a room together.
Yeah.
Even if
once a month.
I was going to say, even if it is intermittently, weekly, every second day on some of the issues, but a war room, a situation room, is how we historically do handle a situation. The other thing that it does is it brings into focus shared assets. So you get a group of people in the room, and I say to you, "Hey, Jim, listen, we got to get a barbecue." Well, I got an extra barbecue.
Right.
You're not doing anything with that barbecue? Put the barbecue up on the list. Take it out of the budget. We start to remove these hidden costs, I think, when you have people in a room putting the picnic together.
But you raised a great point about these sort of detached silos that people are in from the remote work. You're having superficial conversation, but it's online and you're doing work, and then, okay, thanks a lot, I'll see you later. Then you go back to your job. But when you're in a room and you're there for half a day, and maybe you have a coffee table and some tea, and you're chit-chatting and there's socializing and interacting, then you're like, oh. And then I don't know how we could not create a good creative flow of ideas and get the juices going and start thinking, oh, wait a sec, you said this. Because if you're in the room together, because the one thing that sports does well is after a draft or after free agency, they'll release a video of 10 to 12 people in the team all debating and talking about, do we sign them? Do we trade them? Do we draft them? And it's fascinating to hear.
I think so. Also, giving that transparency makes you believe more in that team's ability.
But, okay, why can't we see, I mean, they'll have obviously final say in an edit.
Commissions where we sit and have somebody defend themselves.
No, but Carney and his top advisors, sleeves rolled up, tie undone, a stale cup of coffee, hammering out problems and coming up with solutions and say, hey, we did this, and this is how we did it. I think Canadians would like to peel back the layers and see how they come up with these ideas.
Let's take a look at Canada's military and how they handle a war room. What do we have? What does Canada do in the way of a military war room or situation room scenario if something was to arise?
Well, they have a couple. They have the maritime headquarters in Atlantic, which is in Halifax. and which liaisons with NATO. They have a cybersecurity war room, unfortunately, now because that's such a big concern in the world. They have National Defense Headquarters, NDHQ, in Ottawa, and that would be the de facto our version of the Pentagon.
Okay.
So that's when things kick off, and the Prime Minister has notified the Chief of Defense Staff that we have to send 250 heavily armed troops via a C-17 Globemaster to this part of the world. They get together and they sort it out. It's going to be CFB Trenton. We're going to go to CFB Petawawa. We're going to get these members of the military. This is the equipment they need, and this is the logistics to keep them going. And they map it and plan it all out.
So we have this already in place, and it's interesting because there's a gentleman we've had on here, and I'll recommend you go back and take a look for the episode we did with Jeff Wilson talking about outbreak response.
Yeah,
and
it's a great episode.
Really, Jeff is talking in many ways about what we're talking about now. We have an outbreak in lack of housing. Okay, we need an outbreak response to this problem. We have an outbreak in
food insecurity, the price of food,
production of products in our country. Use of our resources in this country. So these are outbreaks of an issue. Yes, it's not a pandemic, and it's not the bird flu or a hantavirus. Those poor people on that cruise. I digress. Having said that, it does elicit a response when that group comes together and says, we have to have a response for this. Let's get all of the experts. Let's run all of the logistics. And now I would imagine incorporating AI would make it that much more effective and less time consumed.
Mike, you just nailed it. Think about how we all came together during COVID. There was a massive global problem that needed to be fixed as soon as humanly possible to get life back going.
Yeah.
So they did bring in everyone. Now, this is pre-AI. So now you would have a group of people, you would have AI systems, you would have experts all working together at even light speed compared to what it would a decision making before, because you would have had AI create some options and ideas and thoughts, and you see how it compares to yours and come up with a solution. And we could apply it to the homelessness, the unhoused, food insecurity, the infrastructure, trying to get things built and get things done in this country and get the economy going, so that if Donald Trump sits on the toilet again and starts going on Truth Social and creating these crazy ideas, we have a defense for it.
You know, we have $780 billion in pension assets and a $2 trillion liability at the moment. So we're upside down.
Oh, absolutely. So wouldn't that be Carney with the top financial economic minds in the country coming up with solutions, coming up maybe with plans no one's thought about that maybe might work?
Here's the other thing. A war room,
excuse me.
When you leave a war room, it's with an action plan.
Yeah.
And a delivery date.
Yes.
So I think that
there's an urgency to create what you promised to do by that time.
I mean, and yes, we're not at war, but we are at situation point with many of these things. If we don't turn our economy around, there will be no pension. There is no doubt about it. If we don't deploy properly into various industries, we're going to fall behind. Our GDP is going to fall out of whack, and we're going to fall out of the G7 almost entirely. Globally speaking, right now, we're not that productive. We don't need a think tank. We need an action room that says, by this date, the action room. Okay, so here's one other point. Winston Churchill said that the most beautiful part about a war room is it keeps you honest.
Absolutely.
When there are people at different levels
there's no
of
BS
expertise,
in there, is there?
You can't put your own personal self-interest first in a war room. You have to do what's best to solve the situation. That, first and foremost, is perhaps why we don't see more of this. We see think tanks and we see, committees and things that take a long time to put into action that protect the government, that protect politicians from actually having to deliver anything during their own term. Could you imagine an action plan that turned around our economy in the term of the Prime Minister? No, he's looking at a budget, Jim, that is far beyond his Prime Minister, far beyond his term. So we need these action plans could actually put us in a scenario in Canada where we have a Prime Minister delivering from each of these pillars of desperation at the moment some sort of clarity and action.
And it can be done because Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien did it.
Yes, they did.
We had a big deficit and they created a surplus. It can be done. And I understand when Mark Carney stands up in the House of Commons and toes the line that we have great affordability when everyone's like, no, we don't. And everything's fine. No, it isn't. But at the same time, this is where all his acumen and all his experience get together. And if you had the war room mentality for the economy, for production, for infrastructure, imagine what could be accomplished if you actually brought in the best of the best in the country, listen to their advice, come up with an action plan. Let's see if we can get this done by this date. It could create great things.
You would hope, right?
Right.
Well, we've seen historically this works. And another good modern day example of it, and I was just taking a look at the notes that Christoph handed off to me this morning. One of the best examples that we've seen worldwide is the Israeli National Cyber Directorate. Everything that happens that is hooked up to any sort of digital data communication, whether it's to their water treatment facilities, whether it is aerial or terrorist attack, whether it is crime on the street, all of these various things are managed out of one central, very focused, topical, protect our country, constant vigil. So it's 24/7.
You have to.
And the people in there are the experts in each of those fields. The water treatment facility people are there on hand all the time. So if they get a report, they can react to it instantaneously. That group also reports back consistently to the people of Israel what some of their concerns are. And they do that to the prime minister simultaneously, not behind closed doors. So now that transparency to some degree is there, not with national security necessarily, because a lot of that, their surveillance is second to none, I'm sure.
In Israel?
Yeah.
They're the leaders.
So, yeah. So if you want to follow the leaders on the cyber front, let's go copy their model.
Nothing wrong with that. Because right now, it's more provincial. So Quebec has the huge Churchill Falls hydroelectric. We have the OPG, Ontario Power Group, with the combination of hydroelectric and nuclear power. So I think it'd be a great idea to have a central Canadian national think tank that takes in all the information from all the provinces and identifies, oh, hey, there's a problem in Saskatchewan. How are we going to deal with it?
Now, I'm going to give you a suggestion. And let's just see where this goes.
We're in a war room. This is what it's all about.
Okay, let me throw this one up on the board. You know what we need?
What?
We need the best of the best civilians that know what they're doing.
Yes.
So what if we put a program out there that said, we're going to create a war room on our economy. We're going to create a housing war room.
Right.
We're going to create an international trade war room. Whatever the situation is, what if we made an offer to the best of the best, said to them, apply. We want you. It's a great paying job. It's an honorable thing to do for your country, and we'll make it worth your while with a great pension there afterward. And we want you for this period of time in the war room. Here's your responsibilities in that war room.
And look what you'll be doing for the country. Look at your legacy.
Well, forget paying consultants. Let's get people in the war room actually working on the stuff until it is done. A war room is there until the work is done. That's the other thing I have noticed.
I mean, they had the war cabinet in England until May of 1945 when they had VE Day, victory in Europe. They had no choice.
Right.
They had no choice.
It just had to be there. When the job was done,
then they didn't have it.
And they took the knowledge of how to do that, and it got applied pretty quickly to NATO. So, I mean...
And then the people that left the military applied it to shipbuilding, commercial shipbuilding, to trains, making the all that kind of stuff around the world. And this is where we have to start thinking seriously as a country. We are not at war as in war's sake, but we are at economic war. So if we're at economic war and we're worried about massive deficits and now paying, I believe it's 13 cents every dollar on the deficit and this kind of thing, how do we change that? Well, if we bring in, as you say, some of the best civilians in the country with top politicians, put them together. Because let's be honest, I could be an MP, win my riding, get appointed as a minister for a certain portfolio, but really, what do I know about this or that? So you're relying on junior ministers and assistants giving you information every day, but you're not an expert. But if you could bring in a civilian who is an expert, imagine what a difference that would make.
Okay, so now imagine this at the top level. Okay,
Yeah.
Imagine that the prime minister, the cabinet, has its own war room. That the cabinet, the parliament, for one day a week runs like a war room.
Yeah.
Okay, put it all up on the board.
What's our top 3 priorities this week?
And what are the top 3 expenses we can get rid of this week?
Yeah.
Make a case for this, and this. And then every week we start to reduce that cost of running the country. It starts to become more transparent. We start to see what's happening on a day-to-day basis, and we start to see the daily effects of what we're doing as a nation.
And check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
And don't worry about if you're going to be a minister or not. And we'll say, hey, Minister Diab, why is there, this many people unaccounted for? Hey, you go to all the different ministers. Minister McGinty, where are we on the submarine purchase?
And you push votes through. Do we keep or take? Vote happening in 5 minutes, and you get it to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, if it needs desperately to come back, it will find its way back into the government.
And if a backbencher that no one's heard of in weeks puts up their hand and says, I have an idea, you listen to them.
Right.
Because it could be a great idea and make a big difference for the country.
So, these are lofty ideas. But I think the takeaway is the war room needs to come back. We can't be working from our homes, Jim, on Zoom and making qualified decisions while the cat is using the litter box beside us. I'm sorry. I think we need to get back to a focused, really, if we're going to win, if we're going to get our economy back, we need focused individuals, the best that we can get at the highest levels, supported by government, dealing with each of these issues until they're solved.
Yeah, I'm a Libra, so I'm all about balance. So I believe that there is a place in the world for some remote work and work from home. It's some of it, but not all of it. That you have to have a few 2-3 weeks out of the year.
Yeah, go on vacation and go home on the weekends. But during your shifts, you go to work, especially when you're trying to save a nation.
It depends what it is. I think there has to be time where, okay, I have the information.
Yeah.
I need my time in my space, wherever it is, to work through it. Then you get together, say weekly or every 10 days. Like, I work through this. These are the things I like. These are the things I don't like. And this is maybe what we should implement.
Yeah, Jim, go to your office. I'll see you at lunchtime. I don't think I think we need to be together.
Yeah, you know what? But here's the issue now. I drove by my local gas station, get my morning coffee. It was $1.95 a liter.
Okay, let's augment people's income who are in these war rooms, and let's get them back to work.
Okay, so that's good. So if they're serious about doing that, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem for a lot of people. A third of Canadians now, their monthly budget's being affected by the price of gas.
Okay, so if we're going to spend some money in this government, let's get people the gas that they need to get to the war room every day to make a difference. And then, yes, we'll send it to people's, we'll podcast it out to people digitally.
Yeah.
But the people working on this, we need a concerted effort in a group like we're talking about,
but Mike,
until it's done.
I'm a weekly war room guy.
Yeah.
And then the next week, if you haven't accomplished things and you haven't done the work and you haven't prepared, you'll be exposed the next war room meeting. You'll be called out.
That is true. Yeah.
So I don't care if you do it in your desk office, in the building, or at home. Just get the work done.
Yeah, I want you in your office, though.
All right. So we'll agree to disagree.
Okay.
But
we'll still go to the lunchroom.
You get back to the war room, you better have ideas, you better have answers, and you better have solutions.
This was a good discussion. And by the way, it took a war room to convince me to do this properly today. And so to the war room around me,
Lieutenant Christoph.
Thanks for joining us.
Sir.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this. And tell a friend.
Wait. Start talking. Pimp your tour.
Okay, so look, here's the thing. We're going across Canada. You're going to find us in your town, likely at
Sault
some
Ste.
point.
Marie. Shout out Greyhounds.
We've got, what else is on the list? Medicine Hat and Regina. We've got Abbotsford and Kamloops. We're going to Edmonton.
Brandon. The weekends.
Why is that sound like that? What was the senator or somebody running for office at one time? We're going to Manitoba and we're going to BC. But we'll be delighted to see you wherever we can, and we'll make sure that In this video, you get a link to the cities that we're going to next, because we'd love you to come out and join our war room. Thank you.
Thank you.